Story 1.
I'll never forget the day I picked up that old, hand-painted doll from a yard sale for my daughter, Emily. It looked unique, kind of quaint, with these big, almost too real eyes. That's where the normal ended and our nightmare began. Emily was over the moon at first, treating it like her baby, but it didn't take long for things to get weird. She started having these wicked nightmares every single night, waking up screaming her lungs out about the doll doing freaky stuff in her dreams. I thought, it's just a kid's nightmare, but when your little girl's scared out of her wits, it gets to you. Things spiralate out of control real quick. Emily didn't want to be anywhere near her room, kept saying the doll's eyes followed her around. Sounded like a load of bull to me, but to keep the peace, I moved the doll to the living room. Big mistake. One morning, I found the darn thing with tears of blood streaming down its face. I'm not making this up. I wipe at my ease thinking I'm losing it. But those tears were as real as anything. I tried to throw it away, but somehow it always found its way back into our house. And those nightmares Emily had, they turned into something else. She'd wake up with bruises and cuts, talking a mile a minute about how the doll was haunting her in her sleep, showing her all sorts of hellish visions. The doll, it seemed to be everywhere at once. I'd find it in places, I swear I didn't leave it. Its presence filled our home with a heavy, suffocating air. My home turned into a house of horrors. Friends who'd come by would leave in a hurry, saying the place made their skin crawl. Stuff started moving on its own. Lights flickering, cold spots in the middle of the room, and the constant feeling of being watched. I didn't need more convincing. That doll was the root of all this evil. I hit up everyone who might know a thing or two about this kind of spooky stuff. Priests, mediums, you name it. But either they were too scared or clueless to help. I was on my own. One desperate night, I grabbed that cursed doll and drove out to the old bridge at the edge of town. I chucked it into the river, watched it sink into the murky depths. Thought that was the end of it. But the nightmare wasn't done with us. That very night, Emily's room went from silent to a scene straight out of a horror flick. I rushed in, heart slamming against my ribs, to find the window smashed, glass everywhere, and Emily gone. I screamed her name into the night, hoping against hope to hear her voice, but nothing. Just the wind whispering back. The cops said they'd do their best, but I saw the doubt in their eyes. They didn't understand, couldn't understand what we were up against. That doll, that thing from the depths of hell, it had taken my little girl. Now, in the silence of a home that's lost its heartbeat, I feel those painted eyes staring, accusing, mocking. At night, when the world's asleep, I hear whispers, soft and sinister. And sometimes, just sometimes, I catch a glimpse of Emily's shadow, dancing in the corner of my eye, forever trapped in a nightmare that came to life. The days following Emily's disappearance were a blur. I'd roam the house, half expecting to find her playing in her room, her laughter filling the air. But all I found was silence. The doll's presence grew stronger. I'd see it sitting on the living room couch, its eyes wet with fresh tears of blood, its stare cold and accusing. My sleep was filled with nightmares, visions of Emily calling out to me from dark, twisted places, her voice echoing against walls I couldn't reach. Neighbors started to talk, whispering about the house with the missing girl and the mother who'd lost her mind. I didn't care. All that mattered was finding Emily, getting her back from whatever dark place that doll had taken her to. The house became my prison, the doll my tormentor. It taunted me showing up in Emily's room, sitting on her bed like it belonged there. One night, pushed to the edge of my sanity, I took the doll and tried to destroy it. I smashed it against the wall, tore it apart, limb from limb. But as its stuffing scattered across the floor, I heard it. A soft, mocking laugh coming from nowhere and everywhere at once. The pieces started to move on their own, stitching themselves back together. the doll reforming before my eyes, its laughter growing louder. I realized then that I was dealing with something beyond my understanding, beyond the realm of the living. The doll was a vessel, a conduit for something ancient and evil. It fed on fear, on despair, and I had been serving it a feast since the day I brought it into our home. Exhausted, defeated, I did the only thing left to do. I sat down, the reformed doll across from me, and I spoke to it. I begged, pleaded for my daughter's return. The doll's eyes, once filled with malice, seemed to soften. It was as if it understood my plea, as if it recognized the depth of a mother's love. The room grew cold, the air heavy with anticipation. Then, in a whisper that felt like a scream, it spoke. "Find her where the water meets the sky." The words hung in the air before the doll crumbled to dust, leaving me alone with a clue, a glimmer of hope. I drove to the bridge, the place where water meets the sky, where I had tried to rid ourselves of the doll's curse. And there, on the bank of the river, I found her, Emily, cold and scared but alive. We held each other, our tears mingling with the river's waters as the first light of dawn broke through the darkness. We left that house, that town behind us, but the memories, the scars, remain. Sometimes in the quiet moments before sleep, I wonder about the doll, about the darkness it brought into our lives. But then I hear Emily's steady breathing, and I know that some mysteries are better left unsolved, some stories better left untold.
Story 2.
I never knew a birthday gift could turn our lives upside down. But that's exactly what happened when I bought Eternal Quest for my son, Jake. It seemed like just another board game, something to keep him busy during the long summer days. But from the first roll of the dice, I knew something was off. The game was beautifully made, with intricate pieces and a fold-out board that depicted different mythical realms. Jake was ecstatic, his eyes sparkling with excitement as he set up the pieces. "Let's play, Mom. You gotta see this," he urged. I had work to do, but his enthusiasm was infectious. So, we started playing. At first, it was fun. The characters in the game were detailed and the adventures captivating. But as we progressed, things began to feel too real. The knights and dragons on the board seemed to move with a life of their own, and the room would grow colder whenever the game's dark sorcerer appeared. One evening, things took a turn for the worse. We heard noises upstairs, thumps and scratches, like claws on wood. Jake's eyes met mine, wide with fear. "It's just the house settling," I said, though my voice trembled. But deep down, I knew it was something else. We heard a low growl, and then the lights flickered. I wanted to stop playing, but Jake was obsessed. He said we had to finish the game to fix everything. But with each roll, the occurrences grew more terrifying. Shadows flickered in the corners of our eyes, and the air filled with the scent of something ancient and musty, like the pages of an old book. One night, Jake's friend Ryan came over. They were upstairs playing the game when I heard a scream. I ran up, my heart pounding, to find Ryan pale and shaking, pointing at the game board. It spoke to me," he stammered. Jake tried to laugh it off, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. I decided enough was enough. I grabbed the game, intending to trash it, but as I touched it, a sharp wind blasted through the house, slamming doors and shattering a window. Jake screamed and I dropped the board. That's when we saw it. A figure, dark and wispy, like smoke, standing in the corner of the room. It had red eyes that burned with malice. We were trapped, the figure blocking our only way out. My mind raced, desperate for a solution. And then, by sheer luck, the doorbell rang. The figure shuddered as if disturbed by the sound, and in that moment, vanished. It was our neighbor, Mr. Thompson, holding a package that had been wrongly delivered to his house. I've never been so relieved to see a misdelivered parcel. But even after he left, the air remained thick with the echo of that encounter. We never touched Eternal Quest again. I hid it in the attic, beneath old blankets and boxes, hoping to forget. But sometimes, late at night, I hear the faint roll of dice, and Jake, now quieter, keeps his door firmly shut till morning light. I don't have all the answers. Maybe some things are better left unsolved, locked away in the attic of forgotten memories. But one thing's for sure, I'll never look at a board game the same way again.
Story 3.
I never thought a fair could freak me out, but here I am, standing in front of this new carousel in our small town, feeling all kinds of wrong. Kids are all over it, but after they hop off, they ain't the same. Like they've seen some ghost or something. Our town's just a speck on the map, you know, the kind where everyone knows your business before you do. So, when they set up this fancy carousel with horses that looked more real than my Uncle Jeb's taxidermy, it was the talk of the place, and kids were nagging their folks day and night to go. I mean, it's just a carousel, right? Wrong. I first noticed it with little Ellie, the sheriff's daughter. She was all giggles getting on, but coming off, her smile was wiped clean. She was quiet, real quiet, and kept looking over her shoulder like she expected the boogeyman to be there. It wasn't just her either. All the kids were acting weird, whispering, and not playing right. I got curious, or maybe I was just bored, so I decided to check out this carousel. It was a regular Thursday, sun high and all. I walked over, and this thing, it was shiny and all, but those horses, man, their eyes were too lifelike. It gave me the creep. Then it happened. Tommy, this kid who's always in trouble, comes up to me, his face all pale, and he says, "Don't ride the horses. They talk." I laughed it off. "What did they tell you, Tommy?" "Not to steal cookies." But he was dead serious. You know, they know things, bad things, and once you know, you can't forget. I didn't buy it, not one bit. That night, curiosity got the better of me. The fair was closed, but that didn't stop me. I hopped the fence and went straight for the carousel. It was dead quiet. I picked a horse, this jet black one with ease that looked like they could see right through you. The moment I touched it, the carousel lit up. Music started playing. But it wasn't no happy tune. It was slow and kinda sad. The horse's mouth moved and I nearly fell off. It whispered stuff, real, dark stuff about people I knew, about accidents waiting to happen, and secrets buried deep. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. It was like those horses held me there. Then, out to nowhere, this cat, a scrawny little thing, jumps on the carousel. It hissed at the horse, and the spell broke. I didn't wait around. I booked it out of there, not stopping till I reached me front door. Pointing and sweeting like I'd run a marathon. I couldn't explain it. I didn't want to. But things got weirder. Accidents started happening, just like the horse whispered. Old Mrs. Patterson's house caught fire, just like that. Mike from the gas station, he had a nasty fall. Said his brakes were cut. It was like our town was cursed. Nobody talked about it much, but we all felt it. That carousel, it was at the heart of it, I was sure. But what could I do? I was just a regular guy. No hero in a horror flick. Then, one evening, as sudden as a flash flood, a storm hit. Lightning, thunder, the works. We hadn't seen a storm like that in years. You know, it knocked out the power, and in the chaos, I heard it. A crash coming from the fairgrounds. When the sun finally showed up, the town went to check the damage. The carousel was in pieces, like the storm had targeted it specifically. Those creepy horses were just a heap of wood and metal now. And just like that, things went back to normal. Or as normal as they can be after something like that. Kids started acting like kids again. The whisper stopped and the accidents, they stopped too. We never talked about it much. Some things are better left alone. So here I am, telling you this because, well, I had to tell someone, right? But let's keep it between us. Some stories, they don't need no ending, they just are, and that's creepy enough.
Story 4.
The day the Buddy Bot landed in our small town, it seemed like every kid wanted one. As a single dad doing my best to raise Timmy right, I figured a toy that could teach him something would be a smart buy. At first, Buddy Bot was a superstar. It helped Timmy with his letters, numbers, even told cool stories about space and dinosaurs. But then, things started getting weird, real weird. One night while I was washing dishes, I overheard Buddy Bot telling Timmy about a battle that supposedly happened right in our backyard. A battle in our sleepy town? It didn't add up. I chalked it up to a malfunction or some kind of mix-up at the factory. But then the stories from Buddy Bot turned darker, stranger. It spoke in a voice that sounded tired, worn out by life. It told Timmy about a tragic love story, about a rainy night in a car crash. That story hit too close to home. That was the story of Marcus, my childhood friend, and the genius behind Buddy Bot. How did his personal tragedy end up in a kid's toy? I tried to get answers from the company, but it was like talking to a wall. They assured me they'd send a replacement, but I wasn't about to let another Buddy Bot into my house, not after what we'd heard. The strange occurrences only escalated. Buddy Bot seemed to act out scenes from Marcus's life, detailing them to Timmy in a way that made my blood run cold. The toy's once cheerful eyes would dim when it shared these stories, as if it was burdened by the weight of Marcus's memories. One evening, everything came to a head. Timmy's scream from his bedroom cut through the house like a knife. I found him staring at Buddy Bot, which was now speaking in a deep, sorrowful tone about a night on a bridge, a night Marcus had almost ended it all. I acted on instinct, grabbing the toy and planning to destroy it, but just as quickly as it had started, the nightmare stopped. Buddy Bot returned to its normal, cheerful self, leaving us in a silent, stunned horror. We buried Buddy Bot that night, hoping to leave its dark stories and the fear they brought behind. I drove out to the countryside, found a secluded spot, and we buried it, hoping to bury the darkness with it. But life didn't just snap back to normal. The town was abuzz with whispers of other Buddy Bots acting out, telling stories they shouldn't know. Parents were on edge, kids were scared, and the air felt thick with tension. We tried to move on, but the fear lingered like a shadow. Timmy was quieter, jumpier. I kept my worries to myself, not wanting to scare him more, but inside I was on high alert. Every bump in the night, every flicker of a light made my heart race. In the meantime, more stories surfaced. Buddy Bots in other homes were acting up, telling tales that made no sense, that scared the kids and their parents. The company issued a recall, but it didn't feel like enough. Something was off, something deeper, something connected to Marcus and his tragic past. Then, one evening, everything changed again. As I was locking up the shop, I heard it, a faint melody, a nursery rhyme coming from somewhere in the darkness. I froze, listening, hoping I was mistaken. But there it was, unmistakable, the sound of a Buddy Bot. My heart pounded in my chest as I peered into the darkness, wondering if this was truly the end of our story or just another dark chapter beginning.